back of Ingebrigtsen is going to do in the 1500. He has time to look behind him. 20 years of age, and he is on top of the world.
But coming down for a maiden national crown, Cornwall is the champion.
Garouge has run his race, or has he? Has he got anything left? El Garouge trying to get there. Kipchoge, the junior's there. El Garouge is trying to get to the line. Kenya wins it. Kipchoge takes
Vivian Chariot's turn. And what a proud moment for her and the Kenyans. The first woman from her nation to take the 5,000-metre title. Vivian Chariot's in Dreamland.
on the outside. Ollie Hoare of Australia comes. Jake Whiteman has just spent. It's going to be Chariot and Hoare. Who's going to get it? It's going to be Australia. The gold.
Run the night at Singapore's most vibrant night marathon this May. Experience the Sundown Marathon on the Endurance Travel Experience package from $2,700. All packages include accommodation, transfers, guaranteed race entry, Tarkine shoes and tea, facilitated runs with a professional coach, recovery station access and more. Inquire today by visiting endurancetravel.co, and to top it off, every inquiry has the chance to win a Tarkine running pack worth $500.
Hello and welcome to the Runners Tribe When We Were Faster podcast. My name is Daniel Hopkins, and in the When We Were Faster series, we talk to runners whose fastest days may be behind them, but who now find a new way to make running an important part of their life. In this episode, I talk with Benita Willis, new mum, former superstar on the track, road and cross country, and current coach at Lace Up Running. Lace Up Running are online and in-person coaches, and you can find Benita and her group of coaches at www.laceuprunning.com.au. Benita's Australia's only world cross-country champion, winning the long course event in 2004 in Belgium. Benita's record at world cross-country is nothing short of remarkable. World Cross is arguably the world's toughest distance race to win a medal or even make the top 10. Benita debuted for Australia in 2001, finishing fourth, then winning the long course in 2004. In a 6-year period, she raced world cross country 7 times, finishing in the top 7 for 6 consecutive years, including doubling in the short and the long course in 2006. In addition to her win in 2004, she finished fourth 3 times. Benita's success wasn't limited to cross country. She held every Australian record from 2,000 metres to the marathon. She still holds 4 national records with the 2,000 metres and 10,000 metres on the track, 5K on the road, 10K on the road, and some of those records are almost 20 years old. In our conversation, Benita talks about the transition in her career when she had to adjust from being the underdog to being the favourite and how she coped with that challenge. She also talks about the transition from the track to the marathon, her love of cross-country, her amazing consistency in that event, along with the exciting prospect of Australia hosting the World Cross Country in Bathurst next month. Despite holding the Australian marathon record for 16 years, she talks more about her challenges in the marathon than reflecting on her own success there, and how she might have approached that distance differently if she had her time over again. She's one of the greatest, arguably the greatest distance runner Australia has produced. I hope you enjoy Benita's reflection on an incredible career and her insights as an athlete, coach, new mum and recreational runner. Hello, Benita Willis, and welcome to the Runners Tribe When We Were Faster podcast. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, I'm excited to be on this one, and looking forward to having a chat.
And where do we find you today? You're in the Gold Coast these days, is that right?
Yeah, I moved to the Gold Coast a couple of years ago, and I had been living in Brisbane before that. Living on the Gold Coast in Currumbin, beautiful southern end of the Gold Coast, and I've just found us renovating a 3-story house at the moment.
Oh wow, that's challenging, but no doubt exciting when it's all done. For runners and listeners who might be new to running or new to athletics, we probably should give a bit of background about who you are and what you've done in the world of running and athletics, because there may be some new listeners, some younger listeners that may not have followed your career as as it evolved through the early 2000s, as many of us were privileged to see it happen. But going through your highlights, you've got the national records, or held the national records from every distance, from 2,000 metres to the marathon, bronze medal at the World Half Marathon Championships, gold medal at the World Cross Country Championships. Of all of these achievements, which would you say that you're most proud of and probably best known for?
Yeah, look, it would definitely be the win at the World Cross Country Championship in 2004. But certainly, I think coming third in the World Half Marathon Champs in 2003, that probably really helped me believe that I could get up to a podium at a World Championship level. And I just come off running the national 10K track record at the Paris World Champs that year, just before the World Half Marathon as well. So I think certainly that World Cross Country win, but yeah, a lot of races before that win in 2004 really helped sort of shape my career and the direction it was going, and gave me a lot of confidence to really have a go to try to win that particular World Cross Country. And yeah, I think a lot of it is about confidence and being able to not only run at the front of the pack, but what you can do in the last lap of those sort of races to actually win, because it's a lot of risk taking, I think, in those bigger races to be up there. But yeah, certainly World Cross Country. But I am very proud of a lot of those Australian records that I set. A lot of them have been broken now, but still have a few on there.
Absolutely, it's amazing how well they've stood the test of time, and probably the most recent one that we've seen surpassed was Sinead Diver breaking the Australian women's marathon record late last year. A remarkable run, and for you it was how was it for you, sort of seeing that record go down? Mixed emotions?
Yeah, certainly. And look, Sinead, she's a wonderful person and a fantastic athlete. And I couldn't be happier for someone like her to have broken it and for me to pass it on to her. But yeah, like looking at a lot of her races, she'd been leading up to running faster and faster. But, last year she had a few setbacks in a couple of marathons before that 221 in Valencia. And I think it's a real credit to her for sort of not giving up. And certainly I know she didn't give up, but coming back stronger after disappointment. I think she had a marathon in Japan where she DNF'd, and then Com Games as well, leading into that one. So it was a fantastic run by her to sort of come out and run a huge PB and break that record by a fair bit. But yeah, I've got a 4-month-old baby, so I knew that marathon was on, but I forgot to sort of follow it. And then I had all these messages on my phone, and then I checked and I went, oh, that Sinead's just broken that record. So I didn't realize until a few of my friends had texted me and let me know. But I'm really happy for Sinead, and she deserves it. And yeah, she's a very good marathoner, very, very, runs them very well. So it's one of those things where I always knew it was going to get broken. It was just a matter of time. But certainly, I mean, I do think about the race where I set the record in Chicago a long time ago, in 2006. But when records get broken, it's a sign that distance running's moving in the right direction. And we've got so many good marathon girls at the moment. So they're really sort of striving to be competition for each other, as well as against the rest of the world. And it's a wonder that these records are getting broken. It's a good thing for the sport.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the challenge and the setbacks that Sinead faced, and there's some of the topics that I'd love to discuss with you throughout this conversation. But you also brought up being a new mum of a 4-month-old Poppy. How's the change in life going from to having a new baby in the house?
Yeah, look, it's a pretty big adjustment, but Anthony and I are really excited to be able to have her. And getting pregnant when I was almost 43 was one of those things that we weren't sure that was going to happen, and that's why we brought this house to renovate. So we brought the house to renovate before we knew we were having Poppy. But yeah, she's amazing, and she's 4 months old now. She's keeping us on our toes for sure, and already trying to stand up, and she just wants to be on the ground and on her feet all the time. So she might be she's not walking yet, obviously, but like she just wants to be doing that. So I think we're going to have to get ready to chase her around a bit soon.
And is it tempting as a former elite athlete to sort of look at your 4-month-old and think, oh, I wonder?
Yeah, look, oh yeah, I think I just wanted to do whatever makes her happy, and we've got a lot of musicians in our family as well, so you never know, she might want to be a musician, or she might want to do I always want kids, any kids of mine, and I love seeing kids playing sport, and certainly when I was growing up I did a lot of team sports, so that's what I wanted to be involved in, and obviously running's really good fitness for the team sports, but I'm not going to push her in any direction. But yeah, it's funny because Mum reckons that I walked when I was 7 months old, so we're just waiting to see how she goes. But yeah, I just want her to be happy, and I think her best friend at the moment's our little dog, so she'll be following her around when she can walk.
Do you think that sort of evolution in sort of developing a skill or a talent has to be rooted in sort of following a passion?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And look, that's one of the huge motivators in my career was, if I'm not passionate about something, I could never do it to the 100% full on. And I was always like, whatever I was doing, I always wanted to do the absolute best I could do. And when I was in high school, hockey was my passion, and I was very much involved in hockey, and I did a fair bit of running, but not as much as the hockey. And then I grew to love running when I finished high school, and went over to the Australian Institute of Sport. So I think, yeah, you've got to sort of really have a passion for what you're doing. And I retired from running when I was probably about 32 or 33 because I just didn't have the passion for the elite side of running anymore. I wanted to do something else. So that's what I would always say to people: follow your passions and follow your dreams, and don't do careers that people expect you to do. Do what you want to do. And running wasn't a career when I grew up in a country town in Mackay, and it wasn't like being an elite sports person wasn't really a career that people talked about. Everyone just went to uni and just got a normal job. So it's one of those things that I really thank my parents as well for encouraging me to do what I wanted to do. And you've just got to give everything a go, I think, as well. And if it's not working, try something new. And I think that's probably what I learned from my parents, and I'll always sort of teach that to Poppy as well.
And I'd love to explore the World Cross lead up and race, but before we go there, you sort of mentioned that lead into how you got involved in running and starting off with hockey and then going to the AIS. Your sort of breakthrough year appeared to come in around 2000. Was that the point in which you realised that your passion could be an actual career?
Yeah, for sure. Because I moved to Canberra straight out of high school in 1997, and I did university full time at University of Canberra. So I was doing a teaching degree there, and I just trained. I trained quite hard for a number of years and got better and better. But until I made that Sydney Olympic team, and that was actually my first Australian Open team that I'd made. Until I made that team, really I just thought I was doing running to keep really fit, and I was lucky to be on a scholarship. So I didn't really think I was much better than a lot of other people. But yeah, making that Sydney Olympic team, I won the trial in the 5K, but I was actually training for the 1500 that year and came fourth in the trial. And I remember being really disappointed and just thinking, oh, I'm not going to make it. And there'd been 7 girls that had qualified for the 5K for Sydney Olympics, and I hadn't even done a 5K, so I just went in the trial. And in those days, you could just go in the race, and I ended up winning the trial and running the A qualifier. So it was sort of a big breakthrough. For me mentally as well. And I knew I could do the training. I was training really well. So yeah, I think ever since that Sydney Olympics, and then I still finished my uni degree, but I never really taught. I became a teacher. I sort of, ever since the Olympics in that year, I ended up going on to a lot more different world championships, like indoors, world cross, world half, and world outdoor champs straight after that. So yeah, it was really a big stepping stone in my career, and lovely to be able to run an Olympics in your home country as well.
So your first 5,000 metres, you win the Olympic trial. when was your second 5,000 metres? Was that at the Olympics, or did you get to race in between?
I think I might have done one in between in Bankstown.
So-
But not. I was very inexperienced.
So you turn up at your first Olympics, a home Olympics, running the 5,000 in what might have been your third 5,000 ever.
Yeah, and I remember I was leading the race for quite a few laps. So I almost made the trial, and it's funny how the Olympics work out. I did 4 Olympics, but my best one was probably Sydney, and I think I came 17th overall. So 15 made the final. So I was very close to making the final. Did a PB in my heat. I remember that as well. But yeah.
15-21?
What's that?
Around 15-20, 15-21?
Yeah, I think around that. Yeah, and I was about 21, I think, too.
Wow. So it was a good start to the career, but we're moving around a little bit with the World Cross coming up in Bathurst in Australia. Really want to sort of explore your thoughts and feelings about that event coming up, and it's obviously a competition that's very, very close to your heart. I understand you've been involved in the bid process with Australia actually getting the World Cross, which was due to be here a couple of years ago, but with COVID there's been some delays. So you've been an active participant in getting the World Cross to Australia. That must have been satisfying.
Yeah, look, it was awesome to be able to present the bid to the World Athletics Council. This was back in 2018 in Monaco, and I was there for a World Athletics Athlete Commission meeting, and we had a bit of a bid together, and I was presenting it there, and Seb Coe was there as well with everyone. So yeah, it was pretty cool to go through it all. At that stage, it was sort of like, would we actually get this thing? Because I know Australia tried to get it a number of years ago, I think in Victoria. So it was one of those things where, I wanted to help out and just really see what would happen. And it feels like such a long time ago. Yeah, and obviously went to 21 and then to 22, and now it's going to be here in 23. And with less than a month to go, pretty exciting. I've seen that they've got 68 countries coming, and it's going to be really well supported, which is fantastic. And great to see so many of these cross country runners coming out here, because I think cross country, if you're fit in cross country, it really helps you across all different surfaces. And I know throughout my career, running well at the World Cross Country at the start of the year always set me up for a really good season, whether it was indoors, whether it was, outdoor track or roads. So, within my coaching, in my business, I always want people to be doing some cross country work, because it's so important for your development as an athlete.
Absolutely. And you mentioned your coaching at the moment as well. We should just quickly jump into that. It's Lace Up Running, is that right?
Yeah. So my partner Anthony and I started Lace Up Running at the start of COVID in 2020, and we really just wanted to have a few little ISO comps for people that were in isolation. And I don't think we had it too bad here in Queensland, but still we were all in isolation as well. And what we did was got a few sponsors, a few people that we knew to develop, to donate some prizes, and we had a competition each week. So it might have been like the greatest elevation one week, and one week might have been a 5K. There was lots of different sort of little comps, and then we sent out prizes to the winners. So we sort of started our business like that, and it's an individualised online coaching business mainly, and we have some group sessions here on the Gold Coast. So we have people from 4-hour marathon runners to ultra runners to we've got an elite athlete program. So we've just got a handful of elites, and one of our elite athletes, Lindsay Flanagan from America, came out to run the Gold Coast Marathon last year and won in a course record of 2:24, and that was a big PB for Lindsay. And yeah, she's ranked 5th at the moment amongst the American girls over there, and she's got Tokyo Marathon coming up, so she's really keen to get into the World Champs team for America this year. But look, I love coaching, and I coach probably within our business, we coach about 40 or 50 people. And yeah, it's just great to just see them improve, not only with their running, but mentally, and for them to meet other people that we're working with as well, for the social impact of the sport. So yeah, I really enjoy it. And I'm still coaching a fair few people, but I'll start coaching a lot more now. Poppy's getting a little bit older as well, and I start working a bit more.
It sounds like there's a real sort of community feel around that. Do you sort of see running as playing a critical role in the community?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things that the social benefits of running is huge. So for me as a coach, like, it's not just about setting the training. I think there's so many more aspects to being a good coach, but also helping people. And a lot of it's about understanding people and showing empathy. And, sometimes people, they just want someone to talk to. It's not necessarily about the paces or the times they did in a session. So I think that sort of side of the sport's really important, and even organising, coffee afterwards, and having Facebook chat groups. So then, people that you're coaching can organise to catch up. And do their own sort of runs, and you're really connecting people who might have completely different sorts of jobs and different backgrounds, but you're connecting them through running. So I really love that. And yeah, I teach quite a lot of recreational running coaching courses for Queensland Athletics, and I really stress in those courses that it's the social impact side of the running, and to show empathy as a coach and understand people is just as important, or even more important in some ways, than actually setting the running. So yeah.
And how are you taking on any more athletes? Is there more room? Is there room in the program to add more, or are you at capacity?
Yeah, no, I can probably add more. We've got I've got a coach called Jane Fardell who's also working with us, and my partner Anthony. And Anthony's done lots of trail races, so he looks after a lot of the longer trail runners. And then Jane's got a marathon running and triathlon background, so she coaches a lot of marathoners, but pretty much, a lot of different sorts of people. And I coach most of the elites. Jane's got one elite, but our elite program's very small, so it's mainly rec runners who just want to have a goal. And it might be a time-based goal, but it also might just be, I just want to get consistent with my training, and and make sure I'm accountable for what I'm doing. And I've got a few ladies that are just coming back from having babies as well. So it's sort of similar position to me. I've just started running. So I had Poppy 4 months ago, so I'm just up to running 15 minutes. So these return to running programs, you've got to be quite just gradual with it, but it's good to have someone setting what you should do, rather than sort of just trying to guess it yourself. And that's the key role that I think I play in helping people who I work with. Yeah, but I do have a bit of capacity for sure.
Right. And so how would people find you?
laceuprunning.com.au online, or you just check out our Instagram. And if you send us an email, it's our email is info@laceuprunning.com.au, and send us a little note. But I think our Instagram is, people like to check out what we do over there, and just get in touch. But it's one of those sort of things where I do really love working with people. And we've got a lot of people overseas, so I was doing a lot of coaching in Boulder in Colorado before I moved back to Australia in 2014. So I think that's where my love for helping people really started when I started. I started a coaching business over there, and we worked at Boulder Centre for Sports Medicine. So we did. It was a lot of physiology based work as well. But my business over here probably doesn't have quite as much physiology. But certainly enjoy it. And and I love seeing people in person. So we do have very targeted runs leading up to Gold Coast Marathon, Sunny Coast Marathon, and Brisbane Marathon especially. But then obviously we have people running all sorts of races. And a lot of people that we work with, they set a goal, a few bigger goals throughout the year of a race that they might want to travel to. And then they train for those races and have a holiday afterwards. So, and there is a lot of people that I never really see too much. But there's a lot of people that I've worked with in America for over 10 years now. So, they've wanted me to set their programs, and I've only sort of seen them when I was living in Colorado. I've got 2 people that I coach in Columbus in Ohio that I've coached for 10 years. So yeah, it's just one of those things that you just enjoy following their lives as well, and having a bit of an impact in what they're doing.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it sounds like it's got a real international flavour to it as well. And on the elite side or the sub-elite side, have you got anyone you're coaching running at World Cross in Bathurst, either in the elite race or in, I believe there's a golden ticket race this year for the first time?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, no, I don't have anyone running. But I saw your uniform. Are you running in one of those races?
I'm in the Masters race on the Sunday. So
Yeah.
Fortunately, that doesn't have a selection criteria linked to it. If you're registered with Australian Masters, you can have a run. So I'm looking forward to getting out on the course and mixing it with the best old fellas in the world. So it'll be good fun. So, and I think I love the concept that it's actually providing a platform to connect elite athletes. I believe there's some school races, some junior races, some age group races. I think there's an open race on the Sunday, I believe, that anyone can enter. The golden ticket race on the Friday, I think, is a fascinating concept, in that if you've just missed out on making the Australian team, it's your last hurrah to get a run at World Cross Country with the elites. So yeah, it's great to see some creativity coming into the sport.
Yeah. Look, when I was running, there was just those, junior races and the senior races, and that's it. And it was all over in a few hours. So it's so cool. I was checking out the program the other day, and that golden ticket race is quite interesting because, you run really hard on the Friday, and then if you win the golden ticket, you're backing up, which is very. But you would back up if you won a ticket into World Cross. So.
And look, if it provides the platform for somebody who's just on the edge of national selection to get that international experience, that might, as you sort of mentioned before, there's some races where your confidence can change just by being in the mix or in the race or at the next level. And if this race does that for some athletes to give them international experience, then hopefully it's a good thing.
Oh yeah, and look, I always even with my coaching as well, I think people that are sort of in between that 18 to 23-year-old age group, I think it's really hard for a lot of them to make that breakthrough. And I know when I was younger, the times to make teams were a lot slower. And now, some of these times to make track teams are really quick, and it's really hard to run those times when you're young. So, that sort of gap, I guess, when you're just coming out of juniors, so probably closer to 20 to 23, the people in that age group, it'd be a good opportunity for them to have a go in this golden ticket race. And sometimes you just need one confidence booster, and it really kickstarts your career. And I really feel, because a lot of those people, they're not sponsored, they work kind of probably not full-time jobs because they're training really hard, but they've got to work jobs to get enough money to support their running. And then when they go overseas, they're, spending all this money to be overseas racing. And it's very hard for those particular people. So it's a great concept. And I think, maybe they should have more of those sort of things with other championships as well.
Absolutely. And I think there's talk of maybe some sort of mass participation race at the Paris Olympics in 2024. So it'll be interesting to see what form that takes. And I would imagine that if there's a chance for people to run on the streets in Paris during Olympic Games, it'll be pretty well received. But back to Bathurst and the Australian team coming up. Have you had a good look at the selections in the Australian team, and how do you feel about the team that we're sending to Bathurst from various parts of the country? Looks like there's some pretty good talent there.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I watched. I was up in Mackay when the trials were on, so I watched it on YouTube, and it was really cool to watch everyone race. And obviously, I've seen a lot of these Aussie girls running throughout the year last year and the year before. And yeah, look, I think I'm really excited about that mixed relay. That's a new one. You know, Abby Caldwell ran really well in the trial, but Jess Hull was having a real go as well. So I think with those two girls, you know, they're going to be really good. And I love watching Stewie McSwain race. And, you know, I love watching him race those Africans in the Diamond Leagues. And, you know, he's the toughest, one of the toughest competitors, and just, you know, a great guy, but just love seeing him do well. And I know he's going to have a real good crack at that relay. So it's going to be exciting to see something different as well at World Cross. But obviously, I love the 10K races, and when I ran World Cross Country, it was 8K, so it's slightly different. And you know, they had a shorter distance race as well. So you know, seeing Rose Davies, I follow a lot of how Rose is going, and you know, she's always up there. And seeing her win the trial was pretty cool. And I know she'll be a really good competitor, and she's from New South Wales as well. So I think it's for the people from New South Wales, it's always great to run in your home state at a World Championship. And I know, you know, like Sydney Olympics felt like it was my home state when I ran there. So yeah, so seeing Rose win was really good. But you know, Leanne Pompiani, who came second, I don't know too much about her, but she's running. You know, she won Zatec, and she won she's been winning a lot of road races. I think Bernie as well. So I think she's one of those ones that's really sort of improved heaps, and you know, she's going to continue to improve, and you know, and start making you know, it'd be great to see her in an Olympic team as well. So but yeah, look, in the trials, it was also cool to watch Ali Pashley coming back from having her baby, Tiggy, and also pretty cool, and also Jen as well, coming back from having her baby Archer. So you know, I feel like I'm only up to running 15 minutes so far, and those girls.
Any temptations for a comeback, B?
Look, you never say never, but yeah, I don't think so. I'm probably not at the stage of my life to be dedicating that much time to training. But look, I want to be running at least half an hour, and you know, running 4 or 5 times a week, which is what I used to do before my pregnancy. But yeah, seeing Ali and Jen, and they'll only continue to improve as well. And then look, Izzy Bat-Doyle as well. It was great to see her running, and to see that big breakthrough at Melbourne Marathon for her last year. And I mean, my first marathon, I think I ran 2:38, and I think she ran was it 2:26 or 2:20? It's pretty quick.
Yeah, mid 2:20s, and on Melbourne, which isn't the easiest of courses. So, and I believe her preparation was, you know, not particularly long. So, yeah, signs are pretty good. We've got pretty good marathon stocks at the moment.
Yeah, like, she, so, you know, and seeing her backing up to do that cross trial and making the team as well was awesome. And Caitlin Adams, like, I love watching Caitlin Adams race. So, yeah, for those girls, it was fantastic. And then on the men's side, Jack Rayner, I think, you know, he's one of the guys that I love to see compete, and he always competes really well. So just and I mean, I saw Ramsden had a bit of a go at the lead, and yeah, which is cool. And yeah, and then obviously Brett Robinson coming back from that brilliant Australian record, and so soon after his marathon in the trial. So you'd think he might even be better at World Cross as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to run the trial, so it was impressive just to race, as you say, so close after breaking Deke's record at Fukuoka. So he's obviously recovered well, and you would imagine that 4 weeks later, with a bit more recovery in the legs after Fukuoka, that he'd be another one to mix it well at World Cross. And seems to be the sort of guy that always finishes sort of in the 20s or 30s. I don't think he's finished much lower than that in multiple appearances. So pretty strong, pretty consistent. So yeah, it'd be great to see him on home soil.
Yeah, look, and you know, I know that all our runners, they'll find something extra running, you know, a world championship race on home soil. And and running in the first World Cross Country that we've ever hosted. So, and I'll I'm sure we won't see another one hosted here in Australia in our lifetime. So it's a great opportunity. And I always say too, like, if you're fit and healthy and you're on the start line in these races, you've really got to have a go. And when I won that gold medal, I really had to have a go and take a few risks in that race to try to win it. And I was never in that same situation again. Like, I had a lot of fourths, fifths, and top tens at World Cross, but I was never in a situation to even. One other time in 2003, I was in a situation to get a bronze medal, but I was never in another situation to get a gold medal. So you've really got to take your chances, when they come and have a real go.
So your first World Cross 2001, was that right?
Yeah.
And so you finished sixth there in the short race.
Yeah.
And then fourth the following year.
Yep. Yep.
And that was also the short race. And then 2003, you finished fifth in the short race.
Yep.
And then the year you won, 2004, you stepped up to the long race. What was the thinking around there? Did you feel you were better placed at the long race, or the short race was sort of better suited to 1,500 metre runners? How did that process play out?
Yeah, look, I think I just wanted to have a go at the longer race. And that 2004 World Cross was the year after I ran 30:37 over 10K. And I'd run some pretty quick 5K races. I think I ran my best 5K in 2002. But I think I just wanted to have a go at the 8K race. And I remember leading into that cross country. Leading into the World Cross in 2004, I ran cross country against Dorada Tulu, who had won the Olympic 10,000 metre title in Sydney. Ethiopian top athlete. When I was running, she was always the one to beat. And I raced her in a cross country in Chiba in Japan and beat her over 8K. And I warmed down with her because I was really friendly with her. And she was asking me, am I doing the 4K or 8K at World Cross? I said I was doing the 8K. She was like, I'm so happy because I'm doing the 4K and I don't want to race. And like, just little comments like that gave me a lot of confidence that, this top Ethiopian athlete in the world who's won an Olympic gold medal doesn't want to race me. So I must be, going pretty well. So, I had a lot of confidence going into that race. But having said that, that course in Brussels, it was raining. It was really muddy. Like, I wore 15 mil spikes strapped on with strapping tape. It was really hilly, really hard course. They all suited me, all those conditions. So, I always performed better in comparison to the African girls when it was bad weather and tough courses.
And that race looked like a war of attrition where the pack started out pretty big and then lap after lap after lap, they dropped off to, I think, was there maybe 5 or 6 left with 1 lap to go? And is that when you made your move? Because you looked pretty patient.
Yeah, look, I was feeling really good. So 2K laps, the first 2 laps I felt really good up until halfway. And then that third lap, I felt like I was going to drop off. So I think there was a few surges in that lap, but every lap there was a big hill at the start of each lap, and I felt like I was better at the hill than some of the other girls that were running up in that pack. Like, I always felt like I had a few meters when I got to the top each lap. So I thought, I really had to hold on in that third lap and not lose contact. But once we had the bell going into the last lap, in my head, I just thought I needed to get a gap up this hill, because if I don't, I might not run away from them at the end. So I was sort of going hard up the hill, and so I was leading with 1,500 to go. So I think there was still 4 or 5 of us. And when I remember leading, and I remember just knowing I had a gap, but I was so scared for them to come back, because the year before I was coming third, and then I could just see it was a really hot day the year before, and I could see these 2 shadows either side of me right near the finish. And so I went from third to fifth in a flash, and I just didn't want that to happen. And but I couldn't hear where they were. It was so cold and wet, and people were yelling, and you just didn't really know. But I ended up winning by a long way. But it was the hardest race I ever did. Like, how some races that are your best races are easy, and certainly for me, some of my best races were easy, but that was so hard. And I still remember how sick I felt at the end. So
that's early 2004. And in that period from your sort of international breakthrough year in 2000 to 2004 appears to be that sort of Olympic 4-year block where, you really go from being emerging and getting your first chance to being world class and actually winning what's arguably the toughest distance race in the world at the World Cross Country. So you go from, an unknown junior emerging onto your first Australian team to being a world beater and having the Africans try and avoid you in races. How did the rest of 2004 play out for you after you won, after you're world champion?
Yeah, look, I think it's quite interesting when I look back at my career because I always ran my best races when I was the underdog or I was coming back from disappointment. I never really ran a lot of races after I'd run really good races and had all that confidence from winning. And I didn't like being the one to beat. I think I always liked just being in the background of trying to beat other people. And I remember that 2004 year was pretty much of a roller coaster year because I won the World Cross and that was a huge high. And then I got quite a bad injury. I went to a training camp afterwards in California in Laguna Mountain and got a bit of an injury. And I was running enough to be in the Olympic 10,000 metres on the track in Athens, but didn't run great. But then I recovered really well to win the Great North Run that year and run 67.56 or something to win. And it was a very good field. And that was another highlight of my career, winning the Great North Run. So I had 2 huge races. And then I did my marathon debut at New York Marathon later that year and it didn't go so well. So that was a very roller coaster, and I was never always very consistent. I know I had some very brilliant runs, but I had a lot of runs that weren't at the level that should have been. So I think I struggled with the sense that people were trying to beat me. I always sort of liked, I just liked to just go about what I was doing and not have the extra pressure. And I sort of wish I had have dealt with that pressure a bit better. And maybe I could have, had a bit more help mentally in those days. I didn't really do anything. I just sort of tried to deal with it and come back. But it's one of those things. And then 2005 wasn't a very good year, but 2006 was another good year. So it was one of those things that I think the years leading up to that win at World Cross were very good. And then once I won something huge, I found it very hard to deal with the pressure of people trying to beat me and probably didn't race quite as well in some races.
So you mentioned 2006 being a great year. That was Chicago. You finished 3rd, broke the Australian marathon record, which would have been Lisa Ondieki's record, running 2:22, 20:36, I think.
Yep.
So between sort of your breakthrough year in 2000 and breaking that Australian marathon record in 2006, I would imagine that your training would have changed a bit, sort of going from 1500 5K focus in 2000 to sort of more of a 5,000 runner focus from 2001 onwards, with a few 10s in there, and then, as you said, breaking the Australian record in 2003, and then marathon debut in 2004. So by 2004, when you debuted, when did you make the decision to move up to the marathon? Was that after World Cross?
Yeah, I think, it was after World Cross, and I think it was just around trying to do something a bit different too. And I'd done sort of a lot of the track races and, I'd done a few indoor races as well. I really always liked competing at World Indoors, and that was really the only time I ever ran on the indoor track. But I really liked road races, and I'd come 3rd in the World Half Marathon in my first half marathon as well. So I knew I sort of showed that I could be quite good on the roads, but I just didn't quite know, how good. And I always handled fairly high volume really well too, training wise, even when I was training for sort of 5K, 10K. So it was cool, and I was excited to try the marathon. And I was training very well. I just didn't run quite as well, and I think I might have had some sort of a little niggle, but it's more that I didn't run as well as I thought I should have. So it's just one of those things. The marathon it's really tough, and I don't think I was ever very consistent at the marathon. I admire people like Karen McCann. She was always very consistent. Every marathon she ran was fantastic. Even Lisa Ondiki, to win an Olympic medal in the marathon is something that any of us would love to have done, and she's won big marathons too. And I always look at her career, and I was never obviously as good at the marathon as her, but I had just had one faster time. So look, I think I really wanted to do the marathon, but maybe mentally I had to sort of be a bit better prepared for it as well, and a bit more level-headed. Sometimes I feel like I might have been a bit too aggressive for the marathon. So I always tell people I'm coaching, you've got to keep your emotions like constant.
It's an interesting point, because I think if you look at the Kenyans in the marathon now, I think it's easy to assume that they were always dominant in the marathon, but if you look back to the 90s, a lot of great Kenyan runners that stepped up to the marathon really struggled, and I think the reason was the same, that they approached it in an aggressive manner, and rather than relaxing through the first 25-30k, and had a lot of inconsistencies as a result. So if you had your time over again, what would your approach be? Or as a coach now, what's your advice to athletes? You've obviously been able to impart some great wisdom with a 2:24 runner in your stable.
Yeah, look, I think I feel like I'm always more relaxed when I'm around my family, sort of living somewhere more permanently. And I think in the early days of my marathoning, I was still living in lots of different places, and I wasn't around family as well. And I think a lot of the good marathon runners these days, they have a lot of really good support from family around them, and I think that really helps with consistency and just being really relaxed within the training, and then they just sort of seem to go off to these marathons and come home to their family each time, and I think that works really well. I know people like Jess do that, Nate does that. Lindsay, who I coach, she's been living with her sister in Colorado, and that's really good support for her as well. And but I think there's lots of factors in marathoning these days too that that we might have just been sort of just out there. Like I felt like a lot of times when I was doing marathon, I felt like I was really, it was just like an extended version of a long track race, and I should have been a bit more relaxed. But I feel like it was more your living situation and how you were leading into the race, knowing exactly what nutrition that you might need, or things like that. A lot of the marathoning I did was guesswork, or like when I did Chicago in 2006, it was a cold day, so I just had a bit of a sip from each bottle, but didn't really missed a bottle or two. Didn't really care about nutrition. I just sort of just knew I wanted to stick with the pack. Didn't have a Garmin watch, or didn't have a watch with pace. So the only split I know from that race was what I went through halfway in. So there's lots of things that I sort of just went out and ran, and more so than maybe I should have looked at a few more stats and figured out where I was going. I know the marathon I ran, I came second in Houston Marathon to qualify for London Olympics, which was my last Olympics. I had, a watch with pace for that race, and I remember it was really fun ticking off all the Ks and doing some training with that was paced, and that was the first time I'd ever sort of done that in my career. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, look, I think being relaxed as much as possible, and having family around, I think is an important part of preparing well for marathons and getting there in really good shape, but also mentally as well.
Do you think that because of the distance, and because I know back in your day it was at the very most 2 marathons a year. I think these days with the super shoes, runners are able to maybe squeeze in an extra one. We see some marathoners at an international level squeezing in a few more than that. But because there's back in your time it was 2 marathons a year, did the sort of weight of expectation and the focus on those two performances make it more challenging? If there were more races throughout the year, does that make it a little bit easier to spread the focus? If you're racing 5K, 10K, you can race more frequently, and each individual race doesn't matter quite as much. Does that come into the thinking at all, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good question and something to think about. And certainly when I went into marathons, I always put a lot of pressure on myself because I knew I probably hadn't run many like very good races in the last few months in the marathon prep. And then I know I won't run many races in the few months post marathon. So there's a lot of pressure on those particular marathons to run well, because obviously, you've got contracts around that. And maybe, your shoe contract might have a clause in there about how you're going and things like that. And and bonuses as well. So I think you're always thinking about, not as many opportunities. I think maybe if I had a lot more, or even if I did 3 marathons in a year, it'd be something where you space them out a bit, and you'd have, you know what it's like if you're a 1500 runner, if you have a bad run, you just run another one in a couple of weeks. So it's a bit different with marathoning, and I probably put too much pressure on myself maybe with some of them too. It's just one of those things that I would have liked to, and I know top marathoners these days, some of them do more than 3, but I know a lot of them do 3 a year and run very well in all 3. So, that would have been pretty cool. I think in my career, I only did about 6 or 7 marathons, I think. I didn't run very many, so.
Yeah, and your sort of marathon, I guess, came later in your career from 2004 to sort of 2008, and then it looks like there's a gap from 2008 to 2012. Can you take me through sort of the Olympiad from 2004 to 2008? We've covered off the great year in 2006 where you break the record, but leading into Beijing, and then post Beijing, and then into London, how did running change for you? Your passion for running, the weight of expectation, the focus on the marathon, that intensity and expectation that you talk about. Did running change for you during that time, or was it fairly constant, or did it feel a little bit more like this is a job and I've got to do it really well?
It was really hard. So I qualified for the marathon for the Beijing Olympics, but I really wanted to be in the 10K, and I just didn't get the qualifier. And a lot of that, my dad got quite sick in sort of 2007, and he ended up passing away from a neurological disease that was undiagnosed just before Beijing Olympics. So I think around that time, it was very hard. I was coming home to see him a fair bit. And, I think it's one of those things where you've got like a sickness in the family. I didn't, obviously we knew he was going to die and stuff, but we're still trying to find out what it was to see if he could get a cure. So that was very hard in those years. And then, I got a lot of injuries as well. So 2008, came just over maybe 21st or something at Beijing Olympics in the marathon. But then I came home and stayed with mum and, didn't do much for the rest of that year. I got quite a lot of injuries, I think, in 2009, but I had a relationship breakdown as well in that time. So I think just dealing with those two things, probably my dad more so, I felt it was very hard to push myself. I still did race between sort of 2008 and 2010, but I got to the stage where, you push yourself in a race and you just can't quite get that extra gear. And I think emotionally, I just wasn't ready to be racing at the top level. So what I ended up going to work in Newcastle in England for the Great Run company, Brendan Foster's company that do, it's called Nova International. So all the great runs in the UK and around Scotland and stuff. So that was really cool to do something different and live somewhere else. And then, I thought I really want to make one more Olympics. So I moved to Boulder in Colorado, probably I think towards the end of 2009, and then I got training really well. And by 2010, 10, I raced a bit. Nothing special though. And then in 2011, I was supposed to run Chicago Marathon, but I got injured. But then I won the Vegas Half Marathon and ran really well at the end of that year, and that led on to a really good run in Houston to make that London Olympic team. So, yeah, look, I had quite a number of years where I didn't do much, and I really think that it's that extra gear that you need for racing. Like, I could train fine, I just couldn't race properly, and I think, yeah, emotionally it was just too much, and I needed to step away a bit, which I did from the sport, and I wasn't really sponsored. I didn't have a contract, I don't think, with a shoe company for a number of years in that time. So, you know, it was one of those. Yeah, I still wanted to run and compete, but yeah, it was just one of those things where things just weren't going right, and mixed in with a couple of injuries and things like that. It just took me a while to get back to where I wanted to be. But then obviously I got injured before London Olympics, so that wasn't a great run either. But you know, when you're running for your country, and you know, it was obviously not going well. I'd only been running probably for about 3 weeks off the Ultra G before that race, and normally, you know, as a coach, I wouldn't advise people to do that, but I knew it would be my last Olympics, and I wasn't holding anyone else out from the team. So I just wanted to run the race and sort of finish that chapter of my career and of my life. And yeah, and I was in a wheelchair, I think, at the end, which is pretty embarrassing after a marathon. But like, I was running for Australia, and I just didn't want to get.
You wouldn't be the only marathoner to sit in a wheelchair after crossing the finishing line, but certainly more public than what most people would experience doing it at an Olympics. Yeah. When you got to that point, and had you planned that would be your last race and that you would retire then, or did that decision come after the Olympics?
Yeah, look, I didn't. I knew it would be my last Olympics, but I hadn't planned to stop competing then. But yeah, like, I feel like I tried to sort of train for the rest of that year, and did a few competitions, and I just wasn't, my head wasn't in it. And I'd been coaching a lot. I was still living in Colorado. I'd got a green card, and I was coaching a lot. So I thought, I'm just gonna coach more and focus on doing other things, and just not train so much and not race. And I didn't really announce that I'd retired, but I just didn't compete anymore. So it was probably after mid 2013 I stopped competing.
And did, was there a point in which you said to people, I'm retired, or you said to those close to you that I'm retired, or did you just sort of, fade off into the sunset?
Yeah, I just faded off. I didn't really say I'm retired. I just I didn't know. Yeah, like, I didn't. I just sort of thought. I just sort of said I'm not training that much anymore, and and that was it. So I probably should have done.
No global press conference, inviting all the media outlets.
No, look, and I'm not a very good person at sort of big announcements, or I don't like people making a fuss about me either. So, it's just how I do things. I just didn't compete much anymore, and that was it. And then, my sister had a baby actually in 2013, and it was very hard to live overseas once she'd had a baby. And so that was a big reason why I wanted to move back to Australia as well. So I moved back here at the start of 2014, and it has been really cool to live near my family and see my nieces and nephews grow up. And being mum myself, you see, the kids grow up so quick, and I just didn't want to miss all those years of missing out on milestones, on birthday parties and things like that. So that was probably a big reason why I moved back. And and it was kind of like rebuilding your life again when you sort of stop competing. And I was very fortunate to get some work with Gold Coast Marathon and become an ambassador for them. And that was probably a huge turning point in professionally what I was going to do since living back here in Australia. And I was coming out to the Gold Coast Marathon, and then I started working for Queensland Athletics. So I look after all the rec running side of Queensland Athletics in their rec running arm called Q Run. And, Dave Ginther, I had a big chat with him and Yvonne Mullins just after I came back. And and they offered me a job, and it was the first sort of time that Queensland Athletics had a recreational running arm, which is I look after all the events and running groups that form here in southeast Queensland, and like I really enjoy it. So I think you close one chapter in your life and then other doors open, but you never really know what you're going to end up doing. I know when I first moved back to Australia, I applied for quite a few jobs and I didn't get them because they said, oh, you have to have experience. And I was like, well, I've been an athlete for like 15 years. So, it's hard at first, but you just got to sort of figure out what you really want to do. And enjoying life now. And I don't miss the competitions and being an athlete, but I admire all the athletes and what they go through and how much time and energy and passion they put into their sport, for sure.
So it sounds like the point in which you retired, either overtly or subtly, you sort of get to that point where, did you feel that, was it sort of more of a sense of relief not having the obligation by that stage of your career?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And look, I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want people wasting their time coaching me if I didn't have it in me to be competing properly and putting everything into my training and doing everything. When you're at the top end in athletics, you've got to be doing everything to 100%. It's got to be, as well as you can do it, with sleep, with everything. So, I didn't have that commitment, and I didn't want, people wasting their time. So it's one of those things that it was not only about me, it was about other people too. I just wanted to take the pressure off and just do something else and just keep fit. I still run to keep fit, but I'm not like Steve Monaghetti. I'm not going to set a world record anytime soon.
But I think it's important to sort of recognise, or it's nice to recognise that you can have an enjoyment of running, even post a career like yours. And find different ways to enjoy it. Is your sort of enjoyment of running there at the moment? Obviously, still recovering from having a baby 4 months ago, but is it part of your day that you look forward to each day, or do you sort of think, no, today I've got to run 30 minutes, or I've got to run 15 minutes, or I've got to run? Where does the balance come in terms of obligation versus desire now?
Yeah, look, I do enjoy it. And I think it's one of those things. So going back into my pregnancy, because I was a bit older and a bit of a high risk pregnancy, I didn't run heaps. I didn't really run at all. So I haven't really run for almost a year until last month. And I've started just running back again. And, I look forward to running. But if there's a day where I feel like I don't want to run, I just don't run. I just walk my dog. So it's one of those things that I look forward to running. I love running in trails. I love, probably more so than running on the road or bike paths. So if I ever did little races, it'd always be sort of trail races or, fun runs where I'm just running 5K or 10K at a bigger road race. And, I remember doing a race, a shorter race at Gold Coast Marathon with my nieces and my nephew and my sister and my brother and their husband and wife. And that was really cool. So I think I enjoy that sort of stuff more than, I don't like running as hard as I can at the moment for where I'm at. Like I like just jogging and I'm not back into doing sessions. I like doing little sessions, but I haven't done a little session for probably a couple of years. So so I'm not that keen. I like doing jogging and long runs probably when I get back to running more.
I think it's a great message for everyone that running can be so much more than just posting winning times, fast times, winning races. It can tick a lot of boxes at different stages of life.
Yeah, and look, it helps for me to understand people that I'm coaching and working with. It really helps for me going on my own running journey. That's not an elite athlete running journey. And certainly when I was an elite athlete and when I was coaching people, I really had one tunnel vision look of how people should be approaching their running. But now that I'm sort of a bit older and I've got different goals and different things I like about running personally, I think it helps me be a better coach. But all the running aside, I think my greatest achievement now would certainly be having a baby and being a mum. So it puts all that yeah, all that other stuff into perspective. I think of, when you're an elite athlete and you think, the world's going to end because you've had a bad race. Like that's all put into perspective when you become a mum, and you've got so many other things that you think about, and a baby that's relying on you, and there's so many more important things.
And of all, some great lessons there, and thinking about the current crop of elite athletes out there representing Australia or hoping to represent Australia, and sort of looking back at your career, which I guess really spanned 14 years from making your first World Junior team to running the London Olympics, which is an extraordinarily long career, and covering distances from 1500 to the marathon is quite remarkable, and for good reason. You're lauded as Australia's best female runner of all time. What's the advice that you give to the current crop of athletes to cope with as much the mental challenges as the physical challenges of being at the top?
Yeah, look, I think what I sort of wish I wasn't quite as hard on myself sometimes with certain races. So I think look at everything as a perspective of a whole year or a whole 5-year period, rather than putting a lot of pressure on particular races. But I would lean on family as much as you can, and try to obviously, being an elite athlete, it's not a normal life, but try to do a few normal things, because I think that really helps. Being happy. I know when I ran my best races, I was always happy and settled, and that's a huge part of being a really good athlete is working out what makes you happy and settled, and then you'll run your best. So if that's your living situation, you might need to change, or things like that. Like, I think that's one of the things that will really help. But look, and having good people around you as well. And I know a lot of the current crop of distance runners, they've got really good people around them. That looks like they've got a lot of great training partners. Looking at their social media, it looks like they really enjoy what they're doing as well. So, back when I was running, you didn't have social media, so you didn't really know what other people did. It was all a bit. So yeah, but nowadays, look, they look like they're having fun, and they've got a few other interests too. I think that's a big one. So don't just have running as your focus, and for your life, and for your perception of how good you are being around how well you race. I think it's very important to have other focuses. So if you don't run well, you can do something else and be enjoying something else, and not thinking that people will think I'm useless now because I've had a bad race. So I think that's probably a big point that I think people these days should just make sure that they keep things in perspective like that.
Sounds like balance.
Balance, yes, that's a good word.
Good running word for physiologically and psychologically. So, yeah. Well, B, thanks so much for your time. It's been great to chat. Hopefully, I'll see you at World Cross. I think you'll be in the VIP tent, but if you can give the rest of us a wave from down there, and you've earned that spot in the VIP tent. So. It's been you've had a remarkable career, and it's great to see you still so actively involved in the sport and promoting running, and finding your own path now through running as a new mum. It's great to see that journey continue and take on a different shape and a different view. Cool. Yeah. No, thanks, Danny. It's been great to chat, and I'm looking forward to Bathurst. Likewise, and for all those looking for advice about their running, about coaching, the website again, just for the listeners, is laceuprunning.com.au. Yep. Terrific. Well, again, thanks so much for your time, B. Look forward to seeing you at World Cross, and hope your running journey stays enjoyable as a mum. Pushing Poppy around in the pram and getting out through the hills of Currumbin. Thanks, Daddy. Yeah, I'll be out there. All right, terrific. Thanks, B. See you. Thanks.